If you see Gwasuwon ramen noodles, throw it away and call the FBI immediately. I don't know if you've seen all the recall alerts on TV. It looks like a public health alert, but it's not. If you call in to inform them, it's not the FDA people who will come down, but the police and emergency services. I know because I was there when the first breakout occurred. Michigan was ground zero. They came down with police trucks and biohazard suits and ambulances. First they took the students away, then the FBI got involved. And they took Jenny and all her boxes away too. Or was it the other way around? I'm not sure. My memory's fuzzy these days. I have to write it down before I forget. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm an undergraduate student in Michigan. I stay on campus at school and I had a roommate named Jenny. She majored in architecture and she was an instant noodles fanatic. And when I say fanatic, I really mean fanatic. She only ate ramen. She'll have it for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. I never saw her eat anything else. She might add on an egg or some frozen peas and carrots, but that's about it. But that doesn't mean she shies away from experimenting with her food. Once I saw her pour boiling hot coffee into her cup noodles. Another time I walked in on her making beer ramen. Well, she offered me a large cold glass and I gave it a pass. And then there was this episode where she tried to bake ramen cake in the hall kitchen. And I had to help her put out the flames when the batter caught fire. Otherwise, she was just a normal girl who likes anime, big spectacles, and funky music. We became fast friends in residence hall and we had crazy times together. She had a YouTube channel where she did ramen reviews. She would live stream in the entire review process. She would do a show and tell of the ramen package and open it up. She'd cook the noodles in it, eat it, critique it, and rate it, all live on video. It was actually quite a popular channel. And people all over the world would mail her their country's instant noodles for her to review. There was bacon ramen from the UK, cheese curry cup noodles from Japan, borscht packet noodles from Poland. There was even purple wheat noodles from Singapore. I even saw a cup of soft-shelled turtle soup noodles on her table once. You name any instant noodle flavor or brand, and she would have probably tasted it at least once already. Sometimes ramen companies would send her cartons of instant noodles. Her side of the room was always full of cardboard boxes of ramen. She would gift them to her YouTube fans, or she would give noodles away for free to her schoolmates or the hall residents. Her classmates and hallmates honestly love her. Jenny was patient zero. I remember how it all started. It was on a Tuesday at the beginning of the semester. I remember because it was the first day of my entomology class and I was fussing about having the right lecture notes printed that morning. I noticed a carton box by her bed that was marked with Korean words. The cardboard was already cut open, revealing packets of ramen inside it. Now, usually I wouldn't have paid it any attention, but the noodle packets in this box caught my eye. Ramen packets were usually bright and colorful with pictures of steaming bowls of noodles and mushroom, chicken, or whatever flavor they were about. But the noodle packets in this box carton were just plain white with some black print on it. Curious, I fished out the packet to take a closer look. There was just a black, bold Korean title on a white background, and the word Gwasuwon in smaller print under the Korean characters. I looked it up. And Jenny was already slurping up the noodles in front of her laptop, blasting some YouTube music on her desk. "Keep it down," I said. "Natalie's going to complain to the resident assistant again." Jenny made a face at me. She did turn the volume down a little. "It smells good," The noodles smelled spicy and tangy like kimchi. "I came this morning," she said, waving her chopsticks languidly at the box I was looking at. "Some new company. I've never heard of them." "Weird packaging?" I flipped the white, crinkly packet around in my hand. "No list of ingredients and all that." It's one of those minimalist concepts like mochi." She turned around, holding out the bowl in her hand. "Hey, this is really good. You want to try some?" Now, I love spicy food, and I'm always game for anything with hot sauce, kimchi, wasabi, and the like. But something about the smell put me off. A sort of cold, refrigerated smell underneath the spicy scent. It was very faint, but I could smell it. I was surprised Jenny didn't mind it. "Nah," I said, waving my entomology lecture notes ruefully. "Heading out to lunch." "Enjoy the fruit flies." She grinned. I threw one of my soft toys at her before walking out. I didn't think too much of it, but I did notice that Jenny was having Gwasuwon noodles more often than other brands. Kept smelling it in our room, and always present was that faint, undefinable freezer odor underneath that spicy tang of the noodles. Soon that smell permeated the other floors of our residence hall too. I was in the hall pantry when I caught a whiff of it again. I turned around to see Mike removing his bowl from the microwave with a towel. "You're eating this too?" I asked, curious. "Did you get it from Jenny?" "No, got it from the supermart," he said as he placed the steaming bowl carefully onto a plate. "Jenny gave me a pack earlier on, but it was so lip-smacking good that I went to the mart to get more." And he was right. They were on sale at Campus Mart. I watched the man in front of me unload armfuls of the noodles onto the cashier counter. "That good, huh?" I said to the cashier as I eyed the man walking off with his bags of ramen. The cashier laughed. "Yeah, they're flying off the shelves. We can't stock them fast enough." She scanned my drink with a beep. I tried some myself, and they're actually really tasty. The rest of the semester passed rather uneventfully. The only thing that was even remotely notable was the flu bug going around campus. It was so bad that the lecture theaters were half filled because so many students were ill. And Jenny was sick as well. She'd been feeling under the weather for a couple of weeks now. I checked in on her before I went to class. She was looking a little puffy around the face, and the curtains in our room were drawn. "The light hurts her eyes," she said. She muttered something about her YouTube live stream, and I told her to give it a rest. Her fans would understand. When I closed the door behind me, Jenny was fast asleep under the covers. I could barely make out her form underneath the blankets in the darkness of the room. I think that was the last time I saw the real Jenny. And Natalie was in the corridor when I walked towards the hall's lift lobby. She gave me a dour face as she entered her dorm room next to ours. I just ignored her. We got a break from her complaints this week because Jenny had stopped playing her loud videos. Class was barely half full today. A lot of the students called in sick. The professor looked resigned as she began her lecture, which was a shame because the class was interesting. It was a continuation of last week's lecture about fungal infection in ants. Zombie ants, Jenny probably would have said if she'd been well enough to listen to me yak about it. On the bus back to my hall, I took out my mobile to watch a few videos on YouTube. I saw in the app notifications that Jenny was live streaming, and I felt a twinge of annoyance. I had told her to rest. I tapped on her channel video just to see what she was up to. My mobile screen went dark for a moment, and Jenny's face appeared. She looked like she had just woken up. Her hair was a mess, and she wasn't moving or talking. She was just staring fixedly into the camera, her mouth slightly ajar. Her face was so close to the camera that I could see her cracked lips. The video live chat was already abuzz with comments. What's wrong with her? OMG, she's drooling. Gross. Does anybody know where she lives? She needs help. Where's my noodles? 20 minutes already and counting. Whatever she's having, I want some too. I called Jenny immediately, and she didn't pick up my call. I dashed off the bus when it stopped in my hall, and something was definitely wrong with Jenny. I hammered the elevator button with my hand, and the lift was taking too long. I just bounded up the stairs instead with my backpack bouncing on my back. I rushed to our room and flung the door open, out of breath. Jenny was sitting in the dark, hunched before her laptop. She didn't even react to my sudden appearance. She was just sitting there, very still. "Jenny?" I said, huffing. I strode in, leaving the dorm room wide open behind me. In hindsight, that action probably saved my life. I reached out a hand to touch her, but something made me pause. Jenny's hair was falling over her shoulder, and I couldn't see her face. "What are you doing?" I asked tentatively, slinging my backpack down. She didn't reply. "Jenny?" I said again, my voice louder. She stirred. The light from the door fell on her hair, and it was then that I noticed it. Her hair hadn't been combed, and it was a tangled mess around her face. But I could see that there was something on her head. It was like a little black stump sticking out of the matted hair on her head. It looked like a stalk, and Jenny began to turn around slowly. Her face was pale and drawn, and she was drooling, but it was her eyes that froze me. I'll never forget the look in her eyes as our eyes met. But I didn't have time to think, because the next moment Jenny was lunging at me, her mouth wide open in a snarl and her hands outstretched in claws towards my face. I screamed and threw my bag up in front of me. She dove into me, slamming both of us into the wall. The only thing that's keeping her teeth from me was my backpack. Her eyes were bloodshot and wild above my bag, and her fingernails were scrabbing at me, scratching my face. I screamed again. Jenny, what's wrong with you? Jenny!" I heard Natalie's furious voice at the door. "Look, I told you to keep it Natalie never had a chance. Jenny turned and threw herself at the stunned girl standing in the doorway, sinking her teeth into Natalie's shoulder. Both of them toppled into the corridor. I don't quite remember what happened next. It was all kind of a blur. There was blood all down the front of Natalie's blouse. She was shrieking in terror, beating at Jenny with her fists. I was desperately yelling and pulling on Jenny's neck and shoulders, trying to get her to release Natalie. But she wouldn't let go. It was as if she had a ferocious death grip on Natalie's body. And all this time I was staring madly at the stalk on top of her head. It was thick and dark, and with a little bulb at the end, it looked like some sort of deformed mushroom sprouting out of Jenny's hair. The campus security arrived within minutes, but it felt like forever before someone dragged me away from Jenny. They managed to pry Jenny apart from Natalie, but not before a good part of Natalie's shoulder came with her. I heard the ambulance siren blaring away downstairs. Natalie was already unconscious by then. There was blood all over the corridor. It was horrific. I don't know how much time passed as I stood there in shock, watching the paramedics and security officers rush around me. I heard a sudden burst of static. I turned around and I stared at the security guard, some distance away, as his walkie-talkie chattered into life. He listened to it for a moment, jerked up straight, and disappeared hurriedly down the corridor. It was a little far, but I overheard the message clearly. There had been another incident. I went back into my room, and amid the noise and turmoil, I sat down. My hands were trembling, and I was trying to think. The stalk on Jenny's head, the biting. I shivered and clasped my arms around me. There was something gritty on my hands. I looked down at my arms. They were covered with some sort of dark dust. I jumped up and frantically tried to brush it off. A light caught my eye, Jenny's laptop. And the camera light was still on. Her computer had been streaming live video all this time. Whoever was watching her video stream could see me, and I just walked over and slammed down the cover of the laptop. I don't know how much time I still have. I went into emergency mode. I grabbed whatever I needed. My wallet, my driver's license, cash, clothes, lecture notes. I stuffed it all into my backpack. My eye fell on the cardboard box by Jenny's bed. There were some packets in it. I don't know why I did it, but I grabbed one of the packets of Gwasuwon noodles and stuffed it into my bag. I was out the door in less than 5 minutes. I hit the elevator button at the lift lobby. The lift floor indicators on the wall lit up slowly one by one as the elevator came up. 1, 2, 3, 4. I couldn't wait. I turned and took the stairs. I was 2 floors down before I realized I'd forgotten my passport. It was my wardrobe. I headed back up the stairs, and I was going to push open the staircase door to the corridor when I saw through the door, a glass panel, that the floor was full of people. Not students, not campus security. Men in dark jackets talking into their walkie-talkies. Some had gloves on and they were holding large plastic bags. I could see my dorm door from where I stood, and some of the men were entering my room. The words FBI were embezzled on one of the backs of their jackets. The loudspeaker came on. It was the dean's voice. The campus was in lockdown mode. Everyone was to stay in their rooms. So I took off for the car park where my car was. It was absolute chaos at the ground floor. There were ambulances and police trucks at the entrance. People in biohazard suits were ushering students out, some of them in wheelchairs. The students looked pale and listless. I saw one of them being carried out on a stretcher. His head was turned to the side, and there was a black bump on top of his blonde head. I backed away. Nobody paid any attention to me in the chaos as I unlocked my car and tossed my backpack in. I was sweating heavily by then. I can make it. I can make it, I muttered to myself as I slid into my car seat. Hey, you can't leave. I looked up. It was the campus security guard, and his hands were on my open car door. I need to go, I muttered. I have to go. But he wasn't listening to me. His other hand was moving to his walkie-talkie. You should go too, I said abruptly, loudly. He stopped and gazed down at me, surprised. What? Half of them are sick, I said. I think my voice shook a little. I looked up at him with my eyes wide. You should go now. He stared down at me, and something flickered in his face. Uncertainty. Fear. He knew. He knew what I was talking about. He hesitated. His walkie-talkie paused in midair, and I took the chance. I started the ignition and stepped on the accelerator. He jumped away in surprise. His hands fell away from my door, and I slammed the door shut as I drove out of the parking lot. I looked in the rear mirror as I sped out of the car park. He was just standing there with his walkie-talkie in his hand, looking after me. I drove for 10 hours to my aunt's place in Kansas. I kept the radio on, listening for any news about the school, and there was nothing. Zilch. Nothing on the air about any incident or epidemic in the campus I left behind. During meal breaks, I stopped at gas stations and chewed on burritos in my car while I feverishly flipped through the lecture notes in my bag. The stock. I'd seen it before. It was on the projector screen in the lecture hall. The Ophiocordyceps fungus infiltrates the ant's body and head, but leaves the brain relatively untouched. The neurons in the ant's body begin to die and the fungal cells insert themselves in their place. This is effectively a hostile takeover of the ant body. In the place of the neurons, the fungus releases chemicals that contract and expand the muscles of the ant. It is important to note that the brain is not infected by the fungus. It is speculated that the ant brain is still aware and is a prisoner in its own body as it watches the fungus manipulate its limbs. I stopped reading. I remembered Jenny's eyes. The way she looked at me as she lunged toward me. I opened the car door and vomited everything I ate onto the side of the road. There was a creek next to the road, and I threw out my backpack into the water before I drove away. I have no idea why I did it, but my wallet and everything else I had was inside that bag. That was 2 weeks ago. My aunt let me stay at her place. I told her that it was semester break, and my parents were in Florida. It was far enough, or so I tell myself. I scoured the news every day. There was just a brief news flash about a mass food poisoning in my school. I gripped my fists. They're not telling the truth about what happened in the campus. Then I saw the product recall alerts. The word Gwasuwon flashed on the television screen. I felt my blood chill. It was contained. I kept telling myself, the government will take care of it. I tried not to think about it. But yesterday I saw something that changed my mind. That was what prompted me to write this down to warn you. I was taking out the trash yesterday when I saw the bird. It landed on a fence a few feet away from me, and it had a stalk on its head, just like Jenny. It flew away when I threw a rock at it, and I watched it squawk and wheel away in the air to join the other birds in the sky. I walked back into the house, and the news was on. Something about rats biting each other. I switched off the TV and drew the curtains. I sat down on the couch and started shaking. It was supposed to be safe. Kansas was supposed to be safe. The FBI and the police took care of it. They took away all of Jenny's boxes, didn't they? I have so many questions. Is it contagious? A virus? Some sort of parasite? Can it spread by proximity? What if it gets into the food chain? Where can we be safe from it, and why is the FBI involved? I don't know. I have no answers. I only know that the world is going crazy and that I'm not feeling myself these days. I'm tired. My face looks a little puffy. The light hurts my eyes. I'm gonna lie down now, but I have one piece of advice for you. If you see Gwasuwon ramen noodles, throw it away and call the FBI immediately. Just throw it away.